Welcome to our Trade to Developer podcast. My name is Suzanne Elsey.
My name is Craig Shields, and we've often been asked to share how we've transitioned from trade to developer. We're now ready to reveal all.
So the common theme is we've always been asked, how have we done it?
That's right. Yeah.
So how have we done it?
How have we done it from the beginning? So I'll go first.
Go for it.
So from the day that I left school, I started coming from a labourer to being a developer. I always get asked this question quite a lot, that how did you manage to get along your journey? Well, taking a lot of risks and gambles along the way was always a big thing for me, and taking the responsibility to leave jobs and create my own jobs was always a big one for me from the beginning. So I left school and went and worked for a builder, and that builder, as all tradesmen would know, if you get a good labourer, that you won't be able to let him go, because labourers become very good tradesmen in their own right. So I was working for a builder at the time, and he just didn't want me to be didn't want to be a carpenter. So I had to take the biggest leap first of all, which was to leave that building company and go and find a carpentry company to work for, which I found a shop fitting company. I went and worked for them and got my carpentry sitting guilds, and worked from there, but then knew that I couldn't keep travelling around the country, so I had to make another big leap into working with someone local. And then from there, it was just a matter of I wanted to work for myself. So it was only a few years afterwards went self-employed, set up my own just Craig Shields as a carpenter, and then worked along the lines of that for a while. So self-employed for a few years, and then I met my wife, which my father-in-law ran a property company, so I started looking after his properties with my brother-in-laws. They were gas engineers, electricians, carpenters, and we installed the maintenance on them buildings. So we started to learn how to do business then. So I went from being a sole trader to a limited company, which is another big transition to do. So obviously you got to take on more of your accounts, more of your marketing. You got to go and find your own work rather than just working for builders all the time. So we've done that for around about 8 years, and we grew that from a maintenance company to a construction company. And we were networking, we were bringing in work, we had 15 staff, and it was going really, really well. But as all families do, they get to a point where you all want to do your own thing. So we took another big leap, and it wasn't just me, it was me and my brother-in-laws, took another big leap to set up our own businesses. So I set up a company called Carpentry, and that leap was probably one of the best leaps I'd done, because that was the one that was like gone from being in a business, working with a family-run business, by having my own business, which was a big step. So what I've done is I repeat what we've done in the other business, and then done networking. I went to B&I, and obviously where I asked for you, Suzanne. You need to know what you're looking for in business, which is the biggest thing for me, and repeat work was always where I wanted. So if you can find one client that's going to keep giving you work over and over and over again, then, which was yourself at the time, Suzanne. So it was you was my Pacific referral, and I got referred to you. And along the lines of is that I always wanted to run the business. It was always taking big leaps, always taking on that another staff member, always buying that other van, and just always moving forward with what we was doing. But then obviously working with like yourself, and I was working for a developer at the time over in Essex, and I knew quite quickly that we didn't want to be doing developments for people, because they was really difficult. And plus I was going home every night with a calculator working out how much money he's earning and how much a tradesman's earning him, which is one of the biggest things for me, and one of the biggest things with this podcast and the training course that we've got, is that tradesmen should be doing property, as far as I'm concerned, because it's cutting out the middleman. So we was doing your work, and we were doing work for a developer, and then straight away I wanted to start doing some developing myself. So it was like, well, if we can cut the client out and be our own client, then that's going to give myself repeat work. So where I get repeat work from interior designer through carpentry, or get a repeat work from an estate agent from giving me maintenance work, I was always looking for that repeat work time and time again. But then I realised that I could give myself repeat work, and that's where the golden ticket for me was where I could lose a client and then keep giving myself work, paying myself to do what we're doing, and then at the end of it, I have my own portfolio. So, and then obviously at the time I was working with Suzanne, and things was the country was up and down with Brexit, so you was in the same position about not wanting to do work for clients, and we moved from there. So I think for me, it was taking big leaps throughout my journey, from jumping from a labourer to actually doing my carpentry, from jumping from self-employed to being a limited company, and actually then from a limited company going, well, how can I provide my own work for the limited company, which is where I worked out that I could buy my own projects, I could do them up, and then I could keep them for a pension. And if I could eat, sleep, repeat that over and over again, then why would I ever want to go and do work for a client ever again? So yeah, for me, my journey all the way through was all about taking big steps and doing the right thing for what we needed to do.
It's taken us 7 years to make the transition from working with clients through to developing our own portfolio, and we can speed that up for you. If any of this resonates, please do register now, and we can help you transition yourself from trade to developer in just 12 months.
So that's me, Suzanne, on my journey. What about yourself?
So I started at the age of 15. I wanted to do work experience with an interior design company, and I was inspired by a neighbour of mine who I used to go and sit with her, have a chat, have a cup of tea, put the world to rights at the age of 15, as you do, you think you know everything. And she was having her lounge done up, and I saw the before and the after, and it just inspired me. That's what I wanted to do. I knew it from the age of 15. I wanted to be an interior designer, all because of what happened with her house. Loved art, so it was a common sense thing to move into. So I was looking into ways of doing that, and the plan was I would do some work experience, make sure it was the right thing. But my school decided to stop work experience that year, so I ended up actually doing it in my half-term holiday, like a nerd. And basically did that. They offered me a Saturday job, went to do my A-level art, but I actually really didn't enjoy it. It felt like I was at preschool doing little collages, and I was so determined that that was what I wanted to do that I was impatient, quite impatient, want everything tomorrow, and basically decided that it wasn't right for me, and looked into doing a YTS. That shows my age, because now they call it apprenticeships, and did that for 2 years and worked my way up that company. So I was there for 11 years working with them. By the end of that, I was doing consultancies with clients, going out to their home, advising them on all things interior design. What we didn't do is project management at that stage. I left there when I wanted to go part-time, having the children, and moved to a couple of other companies that just basically didn't fit well with me. I always knew I wanted to have my own business. My dad had his own business, and that really inspired me to have my own. So in 2009, I set up on my own as designer interiors, and I was a sole trader. When I was approached by Linden Homes to do their work for them, I had to have a limited company, and designer interiors was already taken. So I chose the name Furnishing Interiors. And for a little while, I run the companies in parallel, one for clients and one for them. And then I thought that was a bit silly and decided to merge the two. And I've been Furnishing Interiors ever since. Bit scary, because everyone was saying, you're in a recession. Why are you leaving a full-time job? Are you mad? But it was just the right time for me with children and with our life. So things were going really well. I expanded really quickly, got tons of work in, was working for a couple of developers, Linden Homes and Hyde New Homes at the time, and took on premises. It was all going brilliantly. Had a couple of vans with guys out working for a landlord that we did about 7 or 8 months a year doing the refurbs on her property. To a really high standard, always increasing the value that she would get for her tenancies and how quickly they would rent. And all of a sudden, Linden Homes changed staff around. They decided to stop the service, and I had all of these overheads that I needed to fulfill. So I ended up, as a last-ditch effort, to go to networking. It's really not been my thing. I'm quite shy, and walking into a room of people was so incredibly nerve-wracking. I just wanted to faint, actually. I would have quite happily hidden under the table and pretended I wasn't there. But I did it, and I did it because I wanted my business to survive. And I walked into a room of just 7 people. It was actually a really small room, and I still wanted to pass out when I was doing my 30-second pitch. But actually, it's been really, really good for me. It's helped with my confidence and made me a better business person. And in doing that, I was needing more carpentry work. I had one guy doing my work, and I was having to wait 12 weeks for him to start a project, which was not ideal. I needed more capacity. So I've just reached out across our region and asked for introductions to people that did carpentry in particular, but all multi-trades, just so that I could have more people to send work to, and was introduced to Craig. And that's how we met in BNI, or through BNI. And we worked together on loads of different projects, mostly residential clients, but we also did a hotel. And we've got a very, very similar ethos about how we want our client journey to be. We're both quite driven and quite determined and motivated. And we just have very similar standards in regards to quality and the workmanship side of things. So it's worked really well. The main thing was communication. I had so many different tradespeople that would tell the client something but not tell me. And then the client tells me, and that's really not ideal. So the communication is really a key part of what I was doing for the clients, because I was effectively a translator from what the trade person was saying to what the client was understanding, and just making sure everything sort of married up to get the job done. We were working together for quite a long time, and Brexit hit my business and completely annihilated it. And that was when it was a case of do something drastic and pivot, or go and get a job. Obviously, I didn't want to close my company and go and get a job. That I don't think I would even be employable at that point. So I spoke to Craig, explained what was going on. And that's when we both sort of said, we need to generate our own work, and how are we going to do that? And Craig said, let's get a couple of investors, go and do it ourselves and do what the other developers are doing. And that's how we decided to set up the company and move on to doing our developments.
Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for your support, and please subscribe to the upcoming podcasts.
Just remember the famous quote from Henry Ford: if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.